Well, it's about that time. Game announcements are coming out soon, and by the time this video comes out, PlayStation's State of Play would have been old news. I'm hoping it's not a Wolverine announcement only merchant and there's more meat on the bones, because it seems like that's the only thing they're promoting. But to play devil's advocate, we're all really excited for it, and it's the main thing we've all known for a while now and has been in the tank for almost a year, so trying to build up hype for it is only natural. And I'm just hoping for more announcements on my favorite franchises, superheroes, or otherwise. And this week is extra juicy. It is stacked with 4 big gaming events coming out back to back to back. And as you might expect, extra chances leads to extra delusion. Before, we used to always joke, we were sad when we said this, about a new Superman game finally dropping. And after being locked in the no adaptation vault for so long, I'm hoping the success of the 2025 film, along with its sequel coming out next year, the Supergirl movie coming out this month, and the 3rd season of My Adventures of Superman, will push DC's hand to finally take the plunge, as they did say gaming was a part of their new DC Studio initiative, and we haven't seen much of that yet. But why is that? He's objectively the greatest superhero of all time, and he still doesn't have a proper AAA title. Sadly, I know many people will just chalk it up to DC heroes usually being a lot more OP, quote unquote, than Marvel's catalog of standard characters. And if you stand on this opinion, I'm inclined to believe that you're not thinking hard enough or simply aren't creative. This discussion, I know, has definitely become a circular loop, and I hope it breaks over the week, if not now, at least sometime this year with an announcement. But it is kind of funny to think about these superhero games in retrospect, as there was a time where people believed wholeheartedly that DC made better video games, and now Marvel is dominating in both the variety of genres and the sheer amount they produce every year, and I'm definitely having fun. But for the DC side of things, I'm just hoping for a DC KO fighting game where I can finally accomplish my dreams of being Plastic Man in a 2D setting. But before we get started, let me know down below, what games do you hope get announced in the coming days, or maybe even in the Nintendo Showcase later this month? Hopefully, we get some crumbs in yesterday's State of Play, and this ages horribly. Let me know down below, and yeah, as we speak about briefly, I got some opinions on Superman. So let's get the obvious one out of the way first, because this is a character that always starts the argument and somehow always ends it before it even goes anywhere. People say that Superman would be hard to make a video game for because he's practically invulnerable and his physical stats are simply out of this world. But if I were making a Superman game right now, I would start off by either, his Champion of the Oppressed era, the original appearance, or the Grant Morrison New 52 reimagining, where he just wore a shirt. Literally, he looked like you or me. These times for Superman consisted of a man who was pretty strong, fast, and durable, and could only leap tall buildings in a single bound, not too dissimilar to Hulk Ultimate Destruction or Prototype. We could also start off with Clark being Superboy and very inexperienced and juvenile, slowly learning life lessons along the way with new abilities as each chapter of the early story progresses. I would prefer if we had a combo of this, where he was a kid dealing with social issues and everything above, and gangsters with minimal abilities, and he learns it over time, slowly creating the Superboy suit that would then transfer into a Superman suit when it's daily planet time. Another way to make a more authentic experience where Superman faces great struggles is by making certain parts of the game level coded. It's not just an open world, but maybe we have scenarios where Supes has to go to Warworld, or is trapped in the bottled city of Kandor, or is just off-world and in space, where we can have him have these big set pieces or boss fights that wouldn't normally happen in the usual Metropolis open world gameplay loop. Like, imagine going to Apocalypse and scrapping with the god of tyranny himself. Like, all of us would be hyped in the club, like literally every single one of us. Because who said this needs to only be open world? The second you start mixing in contained, high-stakes levels, you unlock scale in a way most superhero games can't even touch. One minute you're saving civilians in Metropolis, the next minute you're literally on a war planet fighting for survival and with minimal abilities. This doesn't mean there won't be any challenges in the main open world though. I know people like to say Superman would just be too easy of a character going up against normal criminals. And to that I say, yeah, that's kind of the point. Superheroes are a power fantasy at the end of the day. But also, games need stakes, and the only real way around it is to have enemy types throughout the world that exploit his weaknesses or are just really strong. Have LexCorp bots with kryptonite. Maybe follow the recent Superman Unlimited storyline where said kryptonite becomes a common resource from a giant meteorite that then gets turned into bullets, melee weapons, and armor, red sun generators, and energy weapons. Maybe even have a prison break system where a random small-time villain like Silver Banshee, Livewire, or Atomic Skull periodically cause chaos and team up with the normal thugs, possibly even becoming their leader and enhancing their capabilities. Hell, we can even go back to the Superman Return system of the city having a life bar, and the more deaths that you fail to stop and property damage whittles it down. Maybe even have a similar city opinion system as the Amazing Spider-Man 2 tie-in game, which I know a lot of people hated, but I think if implemented well, it could bang. And to be honest, Superman is literally the ultimate firefighter superhero. If you don't feel obligated to save everyone while flying at Mach speed, I think you're playing the wrong game. As a whole, we all know this, or we should know, Superman is about responsibility. The challenge is never can you die, it's can you save everyone. That is way more stressful. A health bar for Superman can be used, especially when fighting against his weaknesses, but a health bar for the city? Now suddenly every mistake you make matters. Now you're actually playing Superman instead of just controlling him. And if you hear a building collapsing across a city, across the map, while you're mid-fight, yeah, now you have a decision to make. That is proper engaging Superman gameplay. Now switching gears a bit because this one hurts. Wonder Woman, her game got cancelled and it probably made me more angry than most because her game is an actual easy layup. Like look at God of War, even the previous Shadow of Mordor and War games made by the former developers of the Wonder Woman game, Monolith. And I don't mean that this is like an easy thing in any way, shape, or form. Anything that's new and is not built on a foundation like Batman Arkham is going to be difficult, but you don't have to reinvent anything really. The blueprint there still exists. Wonder Woman though doesn't have to be in a normal city fighting normal people. There's mythical creatures, undead skeletons, random comic booky enemies you can just create. She can go into different realms, fight actual gods, and has enough tools and interesting abilities that she learns over time for an easy and engaging progression system that might start off with you only having the lasso of truth, but then later you're learning how to command animals, the fires of Hestia, and the lightning of Zeus. Why has nobody made a Wonder Woman game yet? That is so cool. And it's not like Gotham or New York. Wonder Woman, you can go from Olympus to the underworld in like, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes, and nobody will question it. That freedom alone makes the game design a lot more compelling. And contrary to popular belief, she has a lot of great villains that could lead to great action sequences. Think of Cersei and her magic and her constantly trying to transmute you and your fellow Amazons into bestiamorphs, or Dr. Psycho's crazy spirit manipulation, telepathy, and telekinesis, to Giganta being the size of a skyscraper, to whatever crazy set pieces you can create with Medusa or Ares. Like there's so much potential, because these aren't just boss fights, they're big moments in Diana's history that can't really be replicated. You have to make it big and the spectacle has to be real. Also, unlike a lot of other heroes, Wonder Woman technically can die by traditional means like bullets and blades, kinda like Goku. Obviously, that would never happen, but when you put Diana in the hands of a person like you or me, the player, it becomes a lot more feasible. And weirdly enough, that makes her more game-friendly. There's actual tension there that's very easy to create. You're powerful, but you're not untouchable. It's the perfect middle ground where you feel like a god in combat but still respect the danger around you. And honestly, that's kind of the sweet spot every superhero game is chasing. Alright, now this one here might actually be the most fun to design if you really lean into what makes him different instead of trying to fit in within that normal superhero box, and I'm not going to beat around the bush. It is the Flash. And my favorite Flash, I'm sorry to tell you, is Wally West. I know that many people would want a Barry Allen game, but I think Wally is the perfect character for a Flash game. Heck, he almost had one back in the 2000s before it was cancelled, but I'd likely start the game off as Kid Flash, maybe in an hour prologue type of scenario, where Barry is teaching you the basics. You're in an identical suit to Barry's, but you're a very puntable child, a mini Barry if you will. Then we time skip into him being Kid Flash fully in his yellow suit, and we do a couple of missions in a quote-unquote full power state, until eventually we hit a roadblock. Like in the comics, he experiences extreme physical pain because of his body's delayed reaction to being hit by the chemicals and the lightning bolt that turned him into the Flash at a very young age, instead of Barry, who got it as a fully matured adult. So right away, this becomes very interesting because as he got older, the more painful it became, and right there, we have a very viable limitation to his speed. We can say that if we use it too much, we take tick damage or something of the sort, but you get what we're trying to say. We could even say that it knocked his speed down to the speed of sound instead of the speed of light, and now he has to work his way back up instead of being at the top. And all of this occurs after the tragic death of Barry Allen, and he now has to ascend to the mantle of the Flash. All of this really works together where Flash is at his most depressing state, both in terms of mental and in terms of power. We now have a story where we're trying to get our way back to where we were and then to exceed it. But also on top of all of that, Wally has mental blocks where he doesn't want to be faster than Barry out of respect for him, not realizing that Barry would want him to be faster. All of this really works to create a Flash that is very easy to perceive early on. There's nothing too crazy that he's doing. We'll get there. In the comics though, the downgraded abilities happened after being hit by the antimatter ray by the, you guessed it, the Anti-Monitor. But for the sake of streamlining it, we can connect it to his body currently being unaligned with his powers and the pain that he's feeling. So you might be asking, what am I really trying to do here? I am nerfing the Flash. This is going to make the story and the gameplay boring. But for me, I think if he's capped at the speed of sound, traversal, combat, and reaction time all have room to breathe. The player can actually process what's happening instead of becoming a red blur that breaks the engine. If you watched Young Justice and wondered why Wally was so slow when in the comics he's the fastest Flash, well, the version they're adapting is the very early capped at like Mach 1 Wally, instead of the one right now where he's faster than time itself. As weird as it sounds, and this is coming completely out of left field, we can also do a food system where because of his fast metabolism, you have to watch that bar and stock up, because if you don't, you will start getting slower, and the crazier things you do will need more sustenance. It sounds goofy on paper, but it actually makes perfect sense in gameplay. Imagine this, right? You're in mid-mission and you're running across a city, everything is going smooth, and then suddenly your speed starts dipping because you forgot to eat. Now you're detouring to grab food or stock up beforehand like you're prepping for a boss fight. It sounds small, but it reinforces the idea that his powers early on comes at a cost. But this brings us to the progression system, as it will now follow Wally learning about the Speed Force, just like in Mark Waid's original run, getting faster, gaining new powers, and opening up new Speed Force induced enemies that can be around the map, like Savitar's Speed Force ninjas, which is really cool. Random metahumans with different abilities could also be a common occurrence, similar to the Flash TV show, where the Speed Force induced Storm activated multiple people's metagenes and gave them cool, unique powers. Some basic criminals should also randomly have stashes of Velocity 9 that they could use, drugs that give them super speed. If you want, you could also give certain criminals the ability to become baby rogues, like Captain Cold, Heatwave, and Weather Wizard. What I mean by this is that while it's not exactly common in the comics, there have been individuals who try to become the new and improved rogues, only for them to be hunted down by the originals for their actions. Basically, some of that tech should be available for goons to use, as it has been done before. Definitely not as strong or as smart as the rogues, and the crazier stuff like the Mirror Master and their tools should not be used really by normal thugs, but maybe if it is viable, they should try it. These things should be sprinkled around the map, maybe at certain rogue warehouses that people end up raiding. Also, gorillas! We need random gorilla city invasions by Grodd happening every couple of cycles. Now, you've basically built an entire ecosystem around your speed instead of just one character. That's what makes it feel alive. It's not just you being fast, it's the world reacting to your speed. Other speedsters, knockoff rogues, random metahumans, gorilla city invasions just popping up like it's Tuesday. It keeps the gameplay unpredictable. As Wally grows, the more the world should escalate around him. That's how you keep a Flash game from getting stale after 2 hours, and one that prevents you from being too overpowered. And also, before we move on, I would like to introduce a Flash time system that maybe is on a time limit where you go in slow motion. This will lead to a lot of cool scenarios where you interact with the environment, but also where in your base form, you aren't just completely untouchable. It makes it so that you actually have to react instead of having a permanent Injustice 2 trait button where the screen turns yellow and everything around you comes at slow motion. That would not be fun. But now we'll move on to what's probably the funniest case out of all of them, because this is simultaneously the easiest concept here, but the one you can go the most insane with in terms of creativity. Green Lantern, and this one, I'm gonna be honest, has been spoken about to death, so I'm gonna talk about it very briefly here. But you can do a very traditional GL story using our main players in space and adapting the Jeff Johns run, which would, by default, make it a very level-oriented game with some cool semi-open world elements, but you can also do a create your own lantern concept where you have to get to that legendary level. You have to build your way up. So there could also be elements, because I kind of left it on the table here, where you have to choose your own lantern corps, and that changes the story as we have new generals who teach us headquarters to stay in, and leaders who have missions and plans that spread the entire infinite cosmos. This would definitely be more ambitious and maybe even more similar to an MMO in that perspective of having different story paths, but it would make the gameplay loop and progression quite easy to do as we start off as a grunt and work our way up. We probably won't reach Hal Jordan level, but maybe you want to do that for your game. That would be really cool. It is also non-canon. Why not? A Green Lantern game is only limited by your imagination, which is kind of the whole point. Constructs solve your combat variety, traversal, puzzle mechanics, all in one system. You don't need to force any diversity into the gameplay. It's built in. Every enemy type could create different things, and it leads to really cool encounters. So as I've said before, to reiterate, there are 2 ways to do it. You can follow one of our main characters like Hal Jordan, John Stewart, Guy Gardner, or Kyle Rayner, adapting something by one of the big comic creators, and have very big cinematic space conflicts and structured missions. That works, and honestly, I might like that more, but you can go all in. You can go for the more creative path of letting the player create their own lantern, pick their core, and suddenly the entire game is shifting. Suddenly, the Green Lantern mythos turns into a bunch of branching avenues that leads to different places that eventually conglomerates into one location, maybe into the War of Light, leading into maybe even the Blackest Night, and you are a random person that you create that has to deal with all of these very big Green Lantern storylines, but in a video game setting. People do not understand the power of video games and how much they sell, especially if they're long anticipated, like a Superman game, a Flash game, a Wonder Woman game. All of these were wanted for decades without even an inkling of there being a game for them. It's on the table, DC. All you need to do is step up to the plate, and to get some more developers. You don't need to stay within your Warner Brothers workhouse. Get more people from overseas or from other workshops. You don't need to play within your own sandbox. You don't need Warner Brothers always mingling their toes into everything. But yeah, guys, let me know down below, what games do you want to see? What games do you hope finally get an announcement, and how would you go about making these projects? Let me know down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you know when a new video goes live. And yeah, see you all later. Take care. Deuces. Peace.